This is Greg Orloff with IIoT World, and I'm here today with Cliff Emmons. Cliff is the CEO of IIoT-Oxys. They're a startup in the Industry 4.0 space, specializing in the industrial side of the Internet of Things, so right up our alley. Welcome, Cliff.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's fantastic to have you. Yeah, now Cliff, for some of the folks that don't know, I want to have you talk a little bit about your background, because you've got a really interesting pedigree as well as a background, tremendous amount of experience in engineering and specifically in the medical device sector. So bearing that in mind, I have to ask, why IIoT-Oxys? Why now? Why are we going after the industrial side of things?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I do have an engineering background, both in mechanical as well as electrical engineering. I actually worked in several industries over my career, first starting with aircraft instrumentation, moving into industrial controls and automotive aftermarket sensors. So had a lot of background in those industries before landing in the medical device industry itself. There I was developing products for over 20 years, and quite a range of products, everything from surgical staplers to sedation level monitoring for monitoring anesthesia levels during surgeries. I also got to have a wide variety of geographic locations. I was actually stationed in Singapore for 3 years, and I stood up an R&D center in Shanghai, China. Also happy to say, I had many accomplishments during that time, including one of 5 people with a patent for a surgical stapler that became a $1 billion product within 3 years of launch, and then continued to be a $1 billion product ever since that time.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's quite a feat. Sometimes that's when you wish, when you're an internal employee, that you actually have royalties.
Right.
But
those rights were waived, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I really do feel that my time in Singapore and China, it was kind of like doing an internal Asia startup, because when we got there, we had no employees, R&D employees in China. We went from 0 to 250 people within 3 years. We actually launched over a dozen products within that same time. And within 5 years, it actually grew to worldwide sales from just those products of, basically triple-digit $1 million sales and revenue, so I like to joke that I created a $500 million valuation internal startup while I was there. Nonetheless, though, it wasn't without its challenges, being part of that large corporate entity. And one of the places where I was a little frustrated was that digital transformation, making it happen across the business units was very difficult. In fact, I even had difficulty garnering some level of alignment for us, even within business units. So when I did leave Medtronic in 2017, I was already starting to work in the greater Boston, Cambridge innovation ecosystem that, quite honestly, I think is, especially for medical devices, is second to none in the world. And at the same time, I was saying to myself, I really want to delve into the startup community. So I basically really just jumped in with both feet. I became a small angel investor. I started working with various nonprofits, not-for-profits, sitting on their board of directors, being a mentor to startups. And as I was doing this gig economy, as a consultant, I landed at IIoT-Oxys as a consultant looking at applications of their technology to medical device Internet of Things. And it was about 6 months in that the founders of the company said, look, based on your background and your capabilities, we would really like you to step in as CEO. So I was very enticed into that role because I wanted to be part of a SaaS company, software as a service company. I had a deep passion for applying artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning, and really, leveraging the true value of the industrial Internet of Things. So that's exactly how I wound up at Oxys, and I would say it's been kind of exactly what I had hoped for, because it has pushed me into applying the skill sets of product development that I have from the medical device arena into the world of SaaS, of software, of AI, machine learning algorithms, and really helping people turn data into insights, which was really what I had hoped I would be doing, at a large corporate like Medtronic. So again, there's also, interesting challenges that we've had here at Oxys since I've come on board. First of all, it's really interesting learning about being a public microcap company. Definitely some challenges there, but I think the thing that is most appealing to me is that, having come from the large corporates and seeing how they are able to leverage relationships with large consultancies, and being able to really concentrate on areas such as digital transformation, and put a lot of horsepower between that, resources, manpower, and money. What I always felt was, this is too important of a topic for it not to be democratized, for it to not be able to get down to the small and medium-sized enterprises. So I really think this is one of the key aspects that Oxys is about. It's part of our mission, and I actually also plan to kind of delve into that topic in future articles for IIoT World.
Excellent. So bearing that in mind, then, Cliff, what are some of the challenges, for those startups and those small to medium-sized enterprises, where you see opportunities right now, in this, from a smart manufacturing perspective?
So when you talk about the specific challenges for these small and medium-sized enterprises, I think first of all, it's that they're not privy to some of the lessons learned by the big corporations based on their interactions with the consultancies. And when you take a little bit closer look at it, I think what it also comes down to is that the day-to-day operations for a small and medium-sized enterprise, sometimes they get so caught up with just making it through the day with the jobs that had to be processed, that they don't have the time to really begin to look at what data has been generated just by the natural work that's being done day to day, what is already being part of their normal process, and then having a chance to look at that data and interpret it in a way that can help them improve their process, whether it be in the efficiency of the process, the quality of the process, or maybe the performance of the product or component that they're creating. And I think that's exactly where we can come in, because it's through the power of data analysis, of applying strong AI and machine learning techniques, that we begin to see the forest through the trees, and begin to understand truly where the weaknesses are in the process, and be able to optimize those to whatever goals the particular company may want on that particular job.
From just an experience standpoint, and leadership to some extent as well. Can you share any of your toughest lessons, from those medical device days, and how you're leveraging that now with Oxys?
Yes, I think when I think about some of the greatest challenges I had, and I mentioned, how difficult it was to get alignment across an organization when it comes to something as detailed, as digital transformation. I think a few of the lessons that I learned was first and foremost, it really does require top-down leadership, and therefore one of the things that I, it's nice being the CEO because you are the top-down within the corporation. But what it means is when I walk into a customer, no matter what the size of the organization is, it is important to develop the relationship with the leader of that company and to make it clear to them that the success of what they're undertaking really depends on how they translate and communicate the importance of those goals to everyone from the top to the bottom of the organization, and to empower their workers to learn and to take on these challenges and really leverage us as a partner more than just a vendor.
No, that makes sense. I know you folks, you're also involved, in the infrastructure side of things too. And, from a personal perspective, I love all four seasons, but I dread when the orange barrels roll out. And, but they tend to indicate that there's improvement going on. So if you just extrapolate that, from your perspective, what are some of those challenges that we're facing as a nation, in terms of critical infrastructure, as well as just not just the highways and byways, but some of the other facets that people may not think about?
Absolutely. So it's going back to my earliest days as an engineer, at the University of Connecticut, in the early 80s. Even at that point, the infrastructure of the United States was ranked by civil engineers, practicing civil engineers at the time, as probably something around a C-. And to be quite honest, there really hasn't been a huge amount of investment overall in infrastructure, even from those times. And when you look at the opportunity that we have today with recent legislation around the infrastructure legislation, there is a significant amount of money that is specifically earmarked for roadways as well as bridges. And I'm proud to say that some of our greatest successes that we've had at Oxys has actually been in the structural health monitoring area, specifically for bridge monitoring solutions.
Yeah, okay.
And I also think that it's a great example of the power of the techniques that we tend to prefer at Oxys, because we've utilized techniques along the lines of machine learning in unsupervised learning methods, meaning we don't necessarily have to have the type of labeled data that you might need in the case of training an AI algorithm to determine if it's a picture of a dog or a picture of a cat. Instead, what it basically does is literally listen to the traffic going over the bridge and picking out the impulses of the cars and the trucks driving over the bridge, and then characterize those impulses and begin to track literally the response of the bridge to all of those different impulses over time. And in that, you can simply see whether or not the bridge is stable or if it's changing. And this is important because even before the 70s, there was really no inspection done on bridges. It was just assumed it was going to last for 100 years, and you let the bridge go on its own. In the 70s, we began to dictate that visual inspections had to take place. But now, with instrumentation and with these techniques I just described, these are augmentative to what the responsibilities are of these bridge inspectors. So it's data that's not just looked at every 2 years, but everything in between. And it's also helps them see things that they can't basically see with their eyes. So we really feel that it's a game changer. And I also want to state for our smart manufacturing customers, it's also great techniques that we can apply to their everyday problems that they face.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's whether it's harmonics or vibrational analysis, right? You're listening to a bridge, you're listening to a CNC or another piece of equipment with a motor. So I think that technology extrapolates right across. It's fascinating. So tell me then, Cliff, if you had a message to go out to the manufacturing community, the small, medium size, the startups, all those folks out there, give them one piece of advice or one tidbit or one cookie, what would you tell them?
I would say probably the most important tidbit or guidance, I would say, is to look for partners that can work with you on some of your toughest applications. I think too many times in order to simply implement and begin to utilize digital transformation tools, that we sometimes kind of pick the layups that are out there. And in doing so, I really think it's kind of that expression, when you dip your toe in the water, all you get is a wet toe. So you need to dig a little deeper. And I think that's where our company, Oxys, has its strengths, because we've been able to take on, we have not been we have not shied away from the difficult projects. And in fact, that's what we kind of feel differentiates us from many companies in this space, is that we're willing to take a look at what your toughest problem is, that we gauge if the data that you're gathering at this point in time is enough to begin to understand the problem. If not, we'll suggest about what additional data and what sensors we might need to add. And then our machine learning and data scientists go to town on the data collected, and they tease out those insights. And once we understand what are the critical factors and develop the algorithms to pull out those insights, we can put them in a format that is easily communicated from top to bottom in the organization, so that you can continue and even improve on those initial findings.
Fantastic. I appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us today, Cliff.
It was great to be here, and thank you for this opportunity.